Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Um, Yes, the motion is to send it to the 14th order. I don't do this lightly because I recognize this is not a friendly motion to the sponsor of the bill. And I do it because I just think the bill is flawed enough and will have a significant impact on people in our state, and we owe it to them to really get this right. I am not in favor of mandatory minimums. I don't think there's any data, facts, or science that show that mandatory minimums work. In fact, we are actually bucking the trend because I think other states are going the opposite direction. They're getting rid of their mandatory minimums. We still have a mandatory minimum on the books for marijuana, for goodness sake. I'm also concerned about the fact that even though the first level of mandatory minimums for 100 pills, it also, you can either show that or you can show 4 grams. But my understanding is that measuring fentanyl is more of an art than a science. That most time, if not all the time, fentanyl is attached to some other substance. And so, and if you send it to the labs, they can't extract the fentanyl and measure how much fentanyl is in there. So they just measure the substance that it's attached to. It's pretty easy to get to 4 grams if that's the approach you're taking. There's really nothing in the changes we're making to 37-2732D, that's the trafficking in fentanyl, that's the title, that really requires law enforcement to prove, or the prosecutor to prove trafficking. That's what we've entitled the statute. But you don't have to prove that you found books. You don't have to prove that they had measuring devices to measure the drug. You don't have to prove that there were communications. You don't have to have, cell phone communications or tape recording or whatever it is that good law enforcement does. You just have to show that they had a certain amount with them. That's it. Well, the legal standard may be beyond a reasonable doubt, but that's not very hard to prove. Take a picture of it. There it is. So I'm concerned about that. But I'm especially concerned about the drug-induced homicide provision because of the reference to 37-2732 subparagraph A. And that's the statute that I kept referring to because if all you have to prove is delivery, handing over some drug, some Schedule I drug, which includes a lot of things, you could capture a lot of people that I think all of us could agree shouldn't be captured in that law. Now, I get it. Law enforcement and prosecutors will say, oh, but we have discretion. We'll make sure that doesn't happen. Unfortunately, we don't write our laws for the good people that execute them. We write the laws for everybody. That means people who, law enforcement or a prosecutor who may just want to use the law as leverage in a negotiation or misuse the law, maybe aren't appreciating the significance of what's happened to this individual. And that's why I come back to, why aren't we just leaving this in the hands of our judges? They're paid to do this. They have experience doing it. They gather information after somebody has been convicted. They gather information to really find out what was going on. And then they can figure out, as they get ready to sentence, what is appropriate. It's a system that works. And I heard somebody say, well, I don't think our judges are tough enough on crime. Number one, I rarely hear that. Rarely. In fact, I think that's the only time I've ever heard it. And I don't think the data supports it. I think in Idaho, in fact, we heard some testimony. I think in Idaho, we are tough on crime, and especially drug-related crime, which suggests that mandatory minimums aren't needed. And with some of these bigger cases, I think they are prosecuted in federal court. They have some of the tools that law enforcement was testified they were concerned about. So I always start with, why are we doing this? I don't think we're not, I think we are tough enough on crime. I think the statistics show that. I think we have the tools that we need. We have that 37-2732, the one I kept referencing, that is truly about trafficking. That it's not entitled trafficking, but when you read it, it talks about trafficking. So we already have a trafficking bill. As far as the drug-induced homicide section of the bill, we have ways of doing that without having a new code section. For those reasons, I'd like to send it the amending order and see if there's something we can do to improve the bill.